Fellas, we gotta talk about it. Emblem drama, aka the 24-hour raid emblem. Now, I bring this up because here recently, Bungie, for the first time ever, extended the 24-hour time frame to complete the raid on contest mode to 48 hours. Now, this wasn't because Bungie just decided to have a stroke of goodwill toward the community. It was actually because everyone was getting error coded. As a matter of fact, we even got booted a number of times from the very first encounter. Or not even the first encounter, the lead up to that first encounter. We were getting things like guitar errors, an anteater, and some people were running into these problems pretty much all day long. Now, luckily for us, for some unknown reason, we got the checkpoint somehow to the actual first encounter. And it was actually when QJ was loading back in, the game just suddenly gave us the checkpoint. Regardless though, this was a bug that was affecting everyone. And so Bungie decided to say, hey, instead of 24 hours, we're gonna add on an extra 24 hours to give everyone an opportunity to get this emblem. Now, here's where the rub comes in. You've got one side of the community that want these emblems to be very exclusive to only people that can complete it within the first 24 hours. Then you also have another group of people that think 24 hours is not enough time and that in fact, Bungie should make 48 hours the new norm. And by the way, this is exactly how things get started. If you want to see what changes were made inside of trials and other places, normally it's something like a bug. Bungie makes an adjustment and voila, it suddenly becomes a reoccurring thing. Now, Bive actually put out a Twitter post with over 10,000 votes on it, and he asks, how do people feel about contest mode being 48 hours generally? Give me your thoughts. He has, keep it at 24 hours, somewhere in the middle. Make contest 48 hours, add post 24-hour toggle. Now, you notice right there, I put it at 24 hours. I know, I'm coming off toxic, which is why I'm making this video. I know I'm gonna sound like an elitist right here, but here's the thing, guys. I think there should be some exclusiveness for those that are able to go in there with a team of 6, communicate effectively, kill a bunch of aliens in contest mode within that given period of time. Because ultimately what happens within 24 hours, you normally don't make it to the boss. Most teams don't make it to the boss until at least a good 10 to 12 hours in, at least for difficult raids. But considering most bosses on contest mode and their difficulty, just making it to the boss checkpoint is like halftime. And by that point, you're getting pressed on time. If you suddenly went to sleep at that point, even waking up, it's a good chance you're still not gonna have enough time to complete it before the 24 hours is up. So the game to get day 1 raid completions is a marathon. And that to me is what really stresses how good your team is if you can complete it within that 24 hours. Now, I like to look at past data, which is what we're gonna go through real quick. First up, this is the data from all the previous raids inside of Destiny 2. Leviathan, 24 hours, 761 teams. Eater of Worlds, 24 hours, 4,500 teams. Yeah, Eater of Worlds was actually really easy. Spire of Stars, 19 teams. Spire was a difficult one, man, and it really flexed it right there. But then Bungie kicked it up a notch to Last Wish, 24 hours, and only 2 teams. You know, I am ashamed we weren't day 1 raiding back then. We didn't even raid that day, guys. I didn't have a squad or anything. We probably wouldn't have completed it, but man, it would have been epic to at least try, right? Scourge of the Pass, 954 teams. So things started to get a little bit better, started to inch back up. This is kind of give you an understanding of the difficulty. Crown of Sorrows, 104 teams. Fellas, I remember that raid. We actually just transferred over to PC, and like none of us had Anarchy. It was awful. Garden of Salvation, 96 teams. Now, Deepstone Crypt is the one that really upset a lot of people because within the first 24 hours, 5,300 teams ended up getting the completion, which was a ton. And the reason why Deepstone Crypt was such a big deal, even though Eater of Worlds had 4,500 teams, Deepstone Crypt was an annual expansion rate, which are normally much more difficult. Now, I will say this, the Destiny player base has just gotten a lot better, which actually takes us to Vault of Glass. Here inside of Destiny 2, 2,800 teams got through it. Now, Vow of the Disciple. Guys, Vow of the Disciple was getting right back down into those lower numbers. It's very obvious Bungie was trying to make the raid more difficult. They heard us loud and clear that the Deepstone Crypt was way too easy, so they definitely amplified the difficulty here. However, from 24 hours to 48 hours, look at the big difference. This is why 24 hours is important. We go from 892 teams to 6,700 teams, nearly 6,800. Guys, there's so much that can be learned in 48 hours over this 24-hour period. I can tell you right now, we did the raid twice this past weekend. The first day took us somewhere around like 17 hours to complete. So it took us a while, but the second run that we did, because of what we learned, what we understood, and also just passing knowledge back and forth between other teams, you start to pick up what everyone else is using, like what the meta is. Dude, that second run, 2.5 hours. Easy, stupid easy. And that's on contest mode. But you can see right here the difference in completions though, and why it does water down the 24-hour emblem. I understand the issues that my hardcore PvE players have here, and I know it's being perceived as toxic, but similar to things like adept loot and other things, you have to have that pinnacle item, that pinnacle thing to chase. And in this situation, for day one raids, it's the experience and the prestige of having that 24-hour emblem. Nobody is rocking the Deepstone Crypt 24-hour emblem, unless you just really like that emblem. But nobody's rocking it in a way where they're flexing, right? But the other emblems, the ones that were really difficult, Last Wish, Garden of Salvation, and even Vow of the Disciple, that would have been an emblem people would have flexed. Now, before we get into my suggestion, if you want to know my opinion on what the number of teams should be, I think having only 100 teams or less get through a raid within 24 hours means that raid was just too difficult. And I love difficulty, I really do. Harder, always. However, only 100 teams or less, especially considering Destiny's player base right now, considering our lethality, and of course just the overall size of Destiny, there's just way more players going for World's First, because this used to be a thing that would launch on a Tuesday. Guys, we didn't start getting raids on weekends until here recently, which has opened up everyone to trying the raid out in that first 24 hours. So 100 teams or less means the raid was probably a little too difficult, especially now, right? I think 500 is kind of the sweet spot. 500 to me means that raid was just hard enough. And again, I know I'm coming off extremely toxic right here, but this is where I want to mention this other point. I think having contest mode as a toggle option for a separate yet still very prestigious emblem for 48 hours should be the route Bungie goes. And again, like I said a second ago, we have had certain things that happen inside of Destiny that was never meant to be a feature, and then suddenly it became one. Y'all remember back inside of Destiny 1, we got rotating maps for Trials of Osiris? Dude, that originally wasn't a feature. It was a bug, and everyone loved it to the point where they were like, yo, leave rotating maps in for Trials in D1. I think this can be a feature that's added. Make contest mode toggle, but don't make contest mode for the full 48 hours. And the reason for that is there are people that take off work and they're not looking to play the raid on contest mode. They just want to play the raid on normal mode after everyone else had already smashed their brains trying to get through the first 24 hours on contest mode. Have it to where contest mode is a toggle option after the first 24 hours, but with two different emblems. One for the first 24 hours, one for the 48 hours. And if you happen to complete it within the first 24 hours, you can get the 48-hour emblem too. You just get both of them to drop for you. Look, fellas, it's still a feat to have done this raid on contest mode within the 48 hours. It's always a feat, but we have to preserve that level of prestige. I just think to satisfy all parties, make it a toggle feature, and if the raid, say, launches on a Saturday, which it will for all future raids, have Sunday be the day in which people can play the raid normally. And that way, for my folks that are actually taking off for a weekend, they don't have to play the most difficult aspect of the raid, right? Now, as far as how long should contest mode be a toggled feature, should it go past that 48-hour time frame? Personally, guys, I think you still need to keep prestige there, because it's a flex. Really, if you did contest mode and you successfully did it with your team, dude, it is a flex. So I think it should be after 48 hours done with. And if you have not completed the raid on contest mode throughout that time, you would get neither of those emblems. So fellas, that's just my thoughts on the whole debate. I know this seems like such a small thing, but man, I was surprised how much of a debate it became. I will say overall though, the difficulty, despite what people are saying, the difficulty of the raid where it is now, that's kind of where I want to keep seeing things. 892 teams did get by in that first 24 hours. I think between 500 and maybe 1,000, that's honestly perfect. And the reason why this is so important is because raids are getting more difficult. They really are, because players are getting stronger. We saw that from the second encounter, how hard it was to get enough damage because you ran out of ammo. Obviously, this won't be a problem with contest mode off, but with contest mode, it really pushed teams to all be performing at their best when it came to damage. To me, that's exactly what makes day one raids so much fun to attempt. And despite how tired you may be afterwards, you really can't match that satisfaction that you get after beating that raid in that first 24 hours. So guys, those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.